I wanted to, I had to show this right here. This is a Koibo. And in the style of the king that I'm about to talk about right now, I wanted to light this up. But, due to health reasons or whatever. Who knows? I may just like say fuck it and just bun one anyway. But I just wanted to have this here, in memory of Melvin Van Peebles. I just wanted to share a story that I had the opportunity to actually meet this man. Graduated from kind of like film school, audio visuals. I was studying sound engineer, and right after when I graduated, I couldn't really find a lot of work in the industry. The industry was still very weird around then, and it was still very much, pretty much, kind of like, you know, white base most of the time when you went on these sets or any type of job, sound engineer, sound studios or whatever. That's how it was, and it was really hard to find experience. And to get experience out there was you had to get a connect or someone to set up something for you. And I had a connect to apply for a job on a movie set. And it was kind of like my first time working on a movie set, kind of behind the scenes, outside of working as an extra or like being on set when my mom used to uh, do, production back in the day because she worked on films when she was around. So I got the connect to basically go to this production, and usually when you're applying for these gigs, you're either part of some kind of agency, whether it's the Directors Guild or IATSE or something like that, right? The Actors Guild, whatever. And so I was an independent, so I didn't have any of that, and I had to basically go with my resume. My resume is pretty good considering I just graduated and I had a little bit of experience, but it was mostly like mixing bands. But film, I never had anything on film that way. The only film experience I had was, again, just like being an extra. So I went there and I went to bring my resume to this production. The production was Gang in Blue. That was done by Mario and Melvin Van Peebles. But at the time, I didn't realize that it was them doing the film. I just heard that it was an opportunity for me. You need to go there. There's a couple of positions that needs to be filled, and you need to go there fast. And at the time, I was working at Yorkdale. And if you know Toronto, very Yorkdale is some ghetto ass mall in North York, in Toronto. And at the time, I was working at the Gap, and I remember like my scheduled time was like later in the afternoon, so I had time in the morning. So I went there first thing in the morning, and this was in the film district. Now, around that time, the film district didn't have one rapid transit that was running through there. It was like Dufferin and King area. So you can imagine film district, danky ass film district, hella ghetto. Not with the condos that you see out there now. It's like hella ghetto out there. And it was like there was a lot of those studios that were there, but it not a heavy traffic. It was an RC place. And so you go out there and it means you're waiting forever for the bus to come pick you back up, right? To go back to work. So I'm taking a chance to go way out to Dufferin and King area to apply for a job, and then have to run all the way all back to Yorkdale, which is way past, like anyone that knows Toronto knows it's past 401, past like up near the highway to go back to work. And I don't have no car. I got no whip. It's all like, bus business, right? So I'm like, I need to make a good impression for a free gig. I'm not even getting paid. It was like a volunteer type of thing, but it was experience, an opportunity, and I was willing to do that. So I go in and I drop off my resume, And sure enough, there was like, this like Karen type girl that was there, woman that was kind of like the gatekeeper. And she was there and she was like, really polite and everything and all that jazz and doing all the stuff that you do when you're about to tell somebody that, no, I'm not going to really, give you the job. But she doesn't really have the power, but she has some power. So she's looking at my resume and she's like, oh. So she says, well, the well-paid ones are not available. So she must have thought from there I would have been turned off and I wouldn't want to do the gig. But I was like, okay, what you got available? Because I'm into sound. And is there anything in the sound department? And she goes, well, I'm not sure, whatever. And I was like, okay. Because she goes, we got everybody that we need. And I was like, okay. But, again, I still heard that there were some volunteer positions. And it looked like she was upset that I knew that, right? But, she was still trying to be evasive and not really give me a lot of information. And something happened in the universe. And the universe decided to make the king wake up and walk outside. And right then and there, around the corner, just when she was about to file my resume and pretty much send me off my way, like, yeah, we don't have nothing for you, hon. Who walks around the corner? And it's Melvin Van Peebles. Dude was fly as ever. The guy had his hat tilt. He looked like he was wearing like those like knickerbockers, like how those directors wear their pants. Like it looked like they're wearing knickers, and they got their socks all the way up to their knees and stuff. And he had that. I can still remember. He had a turtleneck on. It was, it was about going into fall when production was gonna kick off, right? Because everyone's going back to school around this time. And so he had like a, I think it was like a brown or burgundy. I think he was wearing all brown. He's wearing either like a brown or burgundy type like turtleneck. And he was trim, and fit and stuff like that. And he had, like I said, he had his hat to the side, and he had his stogie, he had this, and he came around the corner, and he was like, he came by in his glasses, and the first thing he was like, he goes, what's this? And it's like, she was about to file me away, but when he caught her, she was like, oh, hi, and he was like, what's going on? And she goes, oh, she was, trying to apply, but I was telling her that we don't have any positions left anymore anyway, and I didn't want to bother you or anything like that. And he was like, you're not bothering me. What's your name? I told him my name is Zoe, and he's like, oh, and he goes, give it here. And she goes, oh, I didn't want it. He goes, no, it's okay. Give it here. So she had to give him my resume, and he's looking at my resume, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at my resume again. He looks at me, looks at me one more time, and he goes, what are you doing today? And I said, I'm about to go to work. I just thought I could quickly just drop this off and just kind of like meet the production manager and then, head back to work. He goes, tell them. He goes, what kind of work is it? And I go, it's just like, customer service stuff. And he was like, oh, okay. Tell them you're going to be late. And I was like, pardon, excuse me? He was like, tell them you're going to be late and you're going to wait right here. You're not going nowhere. And I was like, okay. And I sat down. I go, you just want to sit? He goes, yeah. He goes, you can use any one of these phones. You give her a line out, and I'll deal with this. He takes my resume and he goes back to the room, right, which is his office. And I'm waiting, and I call them, and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to be late, and I don't know how long I'm going to be. And they're like, what? And I go, an opportunity came up, and I just kind of got to deal with it, and I don't have control on who I'm waiting for, but they're running late, and that's why I'm running late. So they're like, okay, Zoe, no problem. You handle what you got to do. We're going to let whoever is here stay, cover your shift until you get back. So I was like, great. So I didn't have to worry about that now. I was like, boom, that's great. Mr. Melvin Van Peebles says, you wait right here. You ain't going nowhere until we're done. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and right at that point, I'm waiting, and like a good, 45 minutes went by or so. And then out of nowhere, I see Mari. Mario comes in and he's got this big smile. You know how he has big cheekbones and he's just stylish and everything. And he's got this big smile on his face and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Mario." I'm like, "I don't know who you are." In my head, I'm thinking I know who you are, but he was pretty humble and pretty cool. And they didn't have that attitude. They were like confident, cool about what they were doing, but they were really cool, really nice. And they said, "Hey, my dad said he told me to, he said you want to see me." He goes, "No problem." Now you gotta understand, when people are getting hired for the film, most everybody else was interviewed by whoever the head of the agency is, like the producer of the film, or you know what I mean, or the lead of like the grips or whatever like that. Like they handpick people, they interview those people, and it's the lead of that team hiring you. I got interviewed by the director, right? And like, back in the day when I was going to school, they said, the director is God. That was the law. It didn't matter what you knew, who you knew, whatever. The number one rule you had to know was the director is God. So when they say something, you have to follow through. And the fact that they were interviewing me, I got something that no one else on that set got. I was interviewed by the bosses, the real bosses, not the little boss under the big boss. It was the bosses. I was interviewed by them, and they were like, Mary was like, "This is pretty good. You just graduated?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was doing this and I was doing that." Around that time, I just came out of Fresh Arts. I was, just looking for different gigs here and there. I did a couple of studio work, and the rest was like, I'm just looking, and I'm looking for experience, and it'd be nice to get paid, but I heard there's no pay gig. And I go, "Yeah, I get paid, but how about this? You come. This is the set. This is where the day we're starting." I was getting call sheets. They turned around and says, "Hey, here is a copy of the script. We would like to see you there. Please come." And like I said, gave me call sheets and the directions and how to get there and etc. And they said, "Don't worry about anything. We got you. If you need to get home, I know we're not paying you. We'll get transport to take you home. Parts, if you can't get there for some reason, we'll get transport to pick you up. And you're practically going to be living on set." Like I was on this set for like about, I don't know, I think it was a good 6 months or something like that. I remember we were going into the winter at that point. Like we went from fall into winter, like maybe not 6 months, maybe like, because it was a movie of a week, so maybe 9 weeks or something like that. Like it was a good chunk of time, and I just remember living on there and pretty much eating there, because craft and all that stuff, that's how you live that life. And I met like a good friend there. To this day, we are good friends. We talk about that time, like to my homegirl now, Yolandi, like we met on set there. And I remember on day one, when I started, so I went out, I showed up on set. I was part of the audio team. The audio team, they were nasty people. The audio team and the continuity woman, they were awful people to work around. They were like, to be learning the craft by some of the nastiest people, because they couldn't help their racism. That was the thing that was interesting about Gang in Blue. If you ever get a chance to watch Gang in Blue, Gang in Blue is basically a story about, just based on the title, Gang in Blue. And it's just based on racist cops and how it was for black cops to be working with the thin blue line that they seem to be advocating for, and they wrote a story back then about it and the issues that they were having, and it was interesting to have these two black directors that were also the executives, and watching how, even though that the rule is the director is God, They had a problem with the fact that there was these black directors telling them what to do in Canada. You know what I mean? And some of the decisions that they make, they would always try to change their hand. And a couple of times, like, you'd have to see like Mary get a little firm and go, "No, this is what I want." Like it was so nasty to watch, and to the experiences that we're going through. And I didn't realize how important it was that I be there when they said, "We really want you to be here," because there's not a lot of people of color on set, and we just don't understand that. Because back home, if we were doing this in the States, this as bad as it is out there, there's just some things that is like we wouldn't tolerate, right? And I was like, wow. And I go, well, Canada's, and I said, well, Canada's interesting. You know what I mean? Because it says one thing and does the other, right? And they're like, we're noticing. And to see that these guys, they had my back the whole time. They made sure that I was taken care of. And I remember the first day of the shoot, I showed up there, and I met the audio team. And the audio team and the continuity woman, they were all good friends, and they seemed to all work together a lot. And at first, the first few days, they didn't know who I was, and they were like, they had the fake niceness. And we were working on there, and then the scene came in. There was this house that they basically, the production rented. It was like a real house, real people lived there, and they basically put that family up in a hotel for a week, and they just rearranged the whole place and painted it up, and we did our first scene in this bungalow somewhere in Toronto, and we're all on the road, and we're standing there, and Mario comes over, and he's doing his scene, and I didn't say nothing. I'm just being quiet, and I'm nearby, and I'm doing whatever I need to do, whether if they want me to pull cable or hold a mic, hold a boom or something like that, and just kind of pay attention. And I'm standing there, and he walks out, because not only was Mario directing it, but he was also in it. So there were the scenes where he's in his uniform, his cop uniform, and he's directing, and then the scenes where he's directing, he's not in it, he's on the outside, and he's standing there, and he goes, cut, and he goes, okay, we need to do this, move this here, and shift the camera over up there, and then he stops in the middle of that, and he turns around and he goes, I am so good to see that you came, and thank you for coming, and like, we're gonna have fun. And he shook my head in front of everybody, and everybody at that point was like, who is this newbie? And why is he shaking her hand? And at that point, it put a little target on my back, because they didn't know who I was. They weren't sure if I was family members, because he had his family on set, because why not? Like everybody else does it, why can't they? And so they weren't sure if I was family. They had no idea who I was. But they're like, you're a volunteer, and yet he didn't say hi to no one else, but he said hi to me. And so, I will never forget that, because they made my time working on a feature, even if it was movie of the week, they made my time kind of, not easy, because it was rough work, but they made me feel like important, and open, welcome me in, and shared whatever stories that they can share, and they were always cool like that. Like when we had lunch or dinner or anything, they would sit down with us and chill with us. And a few times I would be in the trailer hanging out with Mario and stuff like that, and like I got some pictures of that, but just like chilling, like not no big time hangout, like just sometimes it was all work based, but it was like we would hang for a little bit and talk, and they would talk in certain ways to me about how the industry is, like speaking code and all that stuff, and just saying like, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about, and just keep pushing. And like I haven't had an easy time in this industry, like I've being black, female, and doing it, but I haven't necessarily given up. I've worked in several different places. I can tell you stories of all kinds of production houses I've actually worked in, and how it wasn't there, and stuff don't change. It's the microaggressions in the industry is hilarious to the point it's sad. But I'm quite sure anybody else in the industry knows what I'm talking about. But guys like him, those pioneers like Melvin, and what they did to open the doors for people, and then pass that down to his son Mario. I'll never forget that, man, like, because that was my first opportunity to do that, and end up working on other films because of it. It looked great to put on my resume. Boom, I worked on Gang in Blue, and it was like, oh wow, you have some film work, and it's like, yeah, and to actually work with people like that and be that close, and hell, be interviewed by legends. So uh, I'll never forget him, and the world is they have lost a good one, because that guy was a dude. That was a dude, great man, and what he did, and I even have a picture with the old dude, and it's just it's just sad to hear that he's gone. And thank you so much, the Melvins, and the Van Peebles, I should say. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to get a shot, because that's what it is. You just want to get a shot to try. And thank you. Peace. All right.
But that's all that life is. I miss you. 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 I miss you.
A femi, a femi, a femi, a femi.